My name's Donald Cepeda. I am here to learn about climate change and how we can prevent the worst effects of it. Water is important because it's what we need to survive. If the water is bad, then we're dead. If climate change is allowed to occur at the rate that it is, that doesn't seem to bode well for our future with our relationship with water. It'll dry up. We will, in result, dry up as well. And I'd like to figure out ways to prevent that if possible. That's why I came here, hoping I could find out ways to do that with the different organizations that are at this festival.
My water story is not a real big one. I was born and raised in Michigan, moved away for several years though, lived out in California for a while, in New York, and moved back with purpose and knew I was a Midwestern girl at heart. I'm glad I went and had adventures, but glad I moved back. And one of the things is definitely that you're close to water. And always enjoyed the water, always enjoyed swimming. Well, I've taken to sailing in the last couple of years. A friend of mine is a sailor, and we started to go out for little sails and then crossed the lake over to Wisconsin, and took a trip from Muskegon up to Beaver Island, 10-day trip. Hit some pretty good storms, tested my resolve, but I always was drawn back to the lake. And one of the things that I like about being out on the lake and being on a sailboat is I'm a busy person. My mind goes a million miles an hour. I love being busy. I love having a lot of things going on, but I really need that balance. And where I find that balance is out in the middle of Lake Michigan, going about 7 or 8 miles an hour on a sailboat, just hearing nothing but the wind and the waves, maybe the halyards banging, and I can go hours without listening to music, without talking, without really thinking about anything. Just a really beautiful place. And I love those lakes, and I need those lakes.
Yeah, so my water story begins about 3 years ago. My youngest son and I decided to go on a camping trip, and we wanted to go way out in the middle of nowhere. We wanted to really, rough it. We didn't want to do, kind of the glamping. We wanted to just get really way out in the middle of nowhere. So we decided to go to Isle Royale National Park. So you have to take a ferry across to get there. It's in the middle of Lake Superior, and there's nobody around. And there's tapeworms on the island and all sorts of other parasites and bacteria in the water, so you have to have a special filter that you bring with you and be prepared for that, as well as boil your water. And so he and I went to the island to spend a week there, and we both had big backpacks. You have to bring all your food, everything you need to survive, and we were there for a full week, and we're hiking the distance of the island, which is about 46 miles long. And I had a 70-pound pack, and he had a 35-pound pack. He was 13 at the time. And beautiful weather, sunny, gorgeous days, but we were just drenched in sweat carrying this gear. And you'd think, oh, you're surrounded by Lake Superior. There's water everywhere. Well, there's not water everywhere. You have to really search for it. And, when you find a stream, then you're, filling up your water bottles and you're using your filter, and it's a lot of work to get that water that you can actually drink. And then same thing for making your food, same thing for just cleaning yourself up. Water becomes a really precious resource when you're in that instance. And he and I worked all week long to, get our fresh water, and we didn't have any problems, but I was worried at one point that I only have this one water filter. If something breaks, it could be really pretty devastating. And the whole takeaway from this whole adventure, when we came back to kind of the real world and civilization, we just realized how grateful we both are for having clean, fresh, readily available water. You just turn your tap on and it's right there whenever you want it. And it just makes you think about people in the rest of the world and how hard they have to work to, walk miles to a well, or whatever their circumstance is, or you have maybe potentially diseases in your water that you have to boil out or filter out somehow. So it just puts it all in perspective and how precious good, clean water is.
My water story is that I was born in Missouri, where the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers come together. My very first memory in my life is my father rocking me, and my second memory is going over a bridge where I would see the river, where they came together, and just the power and the energy of it. And you're on this high bridge. It was very dramatic. And my father was an executive, and we were transferred up to Michigan, and we spent the first night in Saugatuck. And we went to the lake, and I was 5 years old, and I stood there with my feet in the sand and looked out at this limitless horizon of water, and I fell in love. And that's why I love the water and want to protect it, and why I work on helping to put this festival on so that everyone can fall in love with it and want to protect it. So, yeah.
Well, I grew up on Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes by the water. And recently I've never really been an activist, but I'm concerned for the planet and our health of all of us and the critters, and and I've gotten involved with my neighborhood and decided I need to do something from the ground level. I'm not real political. I am a teacher. I'm a former teacher, so I can talk and I can teach. So I've kind of started a little initiative just in my own little neighborhood, one home at a time, one neighbor at a time, just getting to know the neighbors and trying to have a safe environment in our landscapes, the lawns and landscapes. Just do something different than we were brought up. Most of us in the urban environment were brought up with lots of chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and do we really need these? And they're going into the water, and they're actually even in the air, and so the water and into us somehow through that, and there's disease and ADHD and neurological and endocrine disruptors, and a lot of these chemicals people don't even know what they do in the long term, over, slowly building up over the long term, especially to children and pets. And of course we now know about the bees and the neonicotinoid classification of insecticides. And so just to kind of educate my neighbors, one neighbor at a time, as I educate myself, and I've kind of affiliated with a group in Washington, D.C. Called Beyond Pesticides, and I've learned a lot from them and other organizations locally, and as I learn, I pass on the information so that there are more choices. I don't know that people think there's choice, or they're not concerned, and how we live and how to stay healthy, and so we save ourselves, and it's important, So that's sort of why I'm here. I don't have any sort of organizational affiliation, and but I care. And my brothers are both in landscape and lawn care, and they've worked in these poisons and worked with us, and we don't know what we're doing. This chemical warfare, and we don't know what we're doing and how we can do it differently. We can go back and work with the soil and do it differently, like organic gardening, and people are having gardens in their yards again, growing their own food, that whole thing. And now it's time to get into the landscape part. We don't maybe have an edible landscape, but we could eat a dandelion if we just don't put poisons, on our property. So, thank you. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I moved to Michigan when I was 11, and we lived on White Lake, which fed into Lake Michigan. We lived there for many years. But my real story happened last night, very current. I flew in a small private plane up to the Upper Peninsula to Marquette last night with my son-in-law, and we were taking somebody to camp. And to see Lake Michigan, to fly over Lake Michigan like that in a private plane, I've never done that. It was just phenomenal. And then to see Lake Superior when we got up there. Flying back was even better. It was dusk, and The clouds were pink, the sunset, it was just gorgeous. I just want to say how beautiful Lake Michigan is.
Wow.
And I really want to fight for good water. We need it. Look at California.
Yeah.
Save our water. Don't run the water too much.
I'm a Grand Rapidian at the moment. I grew up on the east side of the state, however, on Saginaw Bay, and about a half mile from the bay, but we would never swim in it. It was dark and murky, and I never became a fisherman, never really was attracted to it. It was always just a body of kind of mucky, yucky water, and didn't appreciate it until years later. And the industries in Bay City and Saginaw kind of cleaned up over time with the help of the Environmental Protection Agency and the regulatory process. It became a little cleaner water. Not as pristine as further northern Michigan, but I think that the context that I knew water then and I know water now, having lived on the west side of the state and loving the Grand River and Lake Michigan, is starkly different. And I think that, as we look at a global population that continues to increase and where we find sustainability with population and what those tangential issues are, if it's water, access to water, it is today, and in different parts of the world, and will continue to be that way unless we figure out some way to keep it clean, keep it replenished. And I owe my muddy youth to seeing much clearer now what can be the case on every shore.
Coming from California, I have a deep heart sadness about what's going on. But I'm not going to talk about that. I'd like to talk about wild water. And my first introduction to super wild water was the North Sea. And boy, does it do it. I crossed it, and then I was on in Belgium on the banks of the North Sea. And it just was going wild, just wild. I had never seen water do that. And cold, it was super cold. And so this is from the wild to the mundane. And then I have another story, if it's okay to do two. Okay, here it is, you're freezing to death, you're watching this wild water, and I couldn't get warm no matter what I did. And I thought, well, water solves just about everything. It does. There's nothing that can't be solved with water. And so I got the idea if I soaked my feet in hot water, I could live through the night. So that's a kind of an interesting juxtaposition. And then my next wild water story is Lake Superior, which to me is just a lake that I'm overwhelmed by that lake. And I stayed very close. I went to visit some friends, and they have what they call camp. And there's this house that's just right on Lake Superior. I mean, it was like being in Lake Superior. It was August, but it was just roiling. And all night long, it just roared and roared and roared and roared. And my friend said, well, is Lake Superior doing its thing on you? Because apparently that lake does do things to people, all sorts of things. Well, there's so many myths and stories about it. And so I had a particular relationship with it because I had a premonition about something. And I knew I had to see clearly. That was what it was. So I found a little creek called Garlic Creek. I think it's right up there. And what happened is my sunglasses just fell into the creek. And it was like, oh, wow, what is this all about? What is this water trying to tell me? And so I managed with a friend. She said, don't worry about it. I'll get your sunglasses. It's not going into Lake Superior. And so I still had this feeling about how the water was teaching me something and also going to protect me, and I needed that protection. So as I drove across the bridge, which I'm not fond of that bridge. I like that water down there, but that's really a wild bridge. The bridge, yeah, going back. So I got about 10 miles out of there, and I was moving over into the left lane, and all of a sudden I was like broadside to a car like this, but that car turned red, and I was able to right myself enough not to hit the car. I totaled my car, but I was completely saved. But I believe that there was something about Lake Superior. There's so many stories about it. I felt protected by that lake in a crazy way. So that's my water story.
Water and rivers are very important for me because in my culture, traditions, after we die, we cremate our bodies on the bank of the river, and the rivers are considered as a holy river. When my father died, he was cremated on the bank of Bagmati River, which is in Kathmandu. So we regard the rivers as a place where we can where we can go to heavens. And so by cremating our bodies in the bank of river, we believe that we will go to heavens and go to the get rid of the earthy things. And so water is very important, and especially rivers. And I grew up in the farmers' village. My grandfather and grandmother primary occupation was farming, and so I grew up in the seeing farming, potatoes and rice in my village. And so rivers were very important to irrigate crops, and without rivers we could not irrigate them. And so water and rivers are very important in my culture and in my society.
And what's the history of your culture and society in taking care of this water?
It goes, I would say, it dated long years ago. Since the reason is that since the water is regarded as a holy, we take care of them. However, the industrial activities, rapidly growing industrial activities, is polluting rivers and watersheds, and I'm concerned about that because I want to see me being cremated on the bank as like my ancestor did. And so it's very important to preserve and conserve water resources. And my ancestors took care of water resources by planting trees on the banks. And but now we did not see that happen a lot in a couple of decades since. But now the attitude regarding the water is changing, and I hope it will. Everybody will be positive regarding managing and conserving water resources.
Oh, I was given the name Water Woman for several reasons. I am from the Turtle Clan, and we have many clans within where we're at. But most of our women were water carriers. And we came from the Great Lakes, and my father migrated down into Minnesota, into more Great Lakes. And it seems like the personalities of all the women that were born were of the water. So our grandfathers gave us the name, the water carriers. And that was more or less our position in life of who we were to be. But one of the things I like to tell you about water is probably something so far off from what many people expect it to be within the environment, because water is much more in depth than just seeing it out here, because it starts off with the creation story. And the creation story, and first of all, I need to say, many people have creation stories, and they're all right as long as they're good. The creation story that was taught to me was that Creator gifted us this blanket that would be provided around our spirit when we entered this world. And when we entered this world, we were born in the wombs of our mother. And that was in this kind of like a cocoon filled with water. And then plus the makeup of this blanket that our spirit resides in is made up of mostly water. So when you think of water, you have to realize it really is life. It's that canal into where we're at today. The water today is being so abused because a lot of those creation stories are being forgotten. They live in the exterior world so much and they take it for granted that they misuse anything that is a provision of life, and that's water. So when we were younger, we were always taught we had to get water from the lakes to the rivers and then to the pumps, the old pumps, you'd pump it. You only take what you need. You never let water sit and be unused, or if you do, you nurture it with a plant or somebody else. You just don't put it to waste. So we were taught at a very early age the appreciation of water. Even the rainwater that would come down, there was always purpose for it. It wasn't so much as to water Mother Earth. We would have it in basins and stuff, and we'd wash and do whatever we had to do with it. So we learned at a very early age the main purpose of what water was. It was our relative. Because without that relationship, we'd no longer exist. That makes sense? So when we teach this, we teach a lot of the water songs. We encourage a lot of people because no matter where you're on this planet, the ancestors always had a song for something. And so we try to encourage them to remember those water songs because it's a memory, because it's that birthing canal that brought us here. It's that source of river into where we're at. The other part of the water is, the elders would say within the prophecies, is that we were born into the most purest of waters, yet we will reach for the most taintless of wells, which means that we will put alcohol in our body, we will birth those babies in that alcohol, we will take all this misuse of what was a natural given to us, and the evidence will be all around us of our nonsense. And so there is a lot of fetal alcohol, children, adults, the destruction that goes on. And part of some of the other creation stories they tell about the serpent, how the serpent roams the earth. And that serpent will leave wells of poison, and it'll be a destruction that will come short, and Mother Earth will send out her cries. Because if people think about water, when you drink water, our body's a plant, and we nourish it and we do everything. But when they talk about that serpent in those bodies of water, the taintedness of waters, is that some people will drink so much alcohol and this stuff and poison their bodies, and then they get up in the morning and they reach for the purest of waters and they get the shakes because they have that toxicity in them. So we have this flip-flop of how we view water. So as us elders teaching this stuff, until you can reach balance and know how to care for yourself, this plant, and you would be able to expel, and you can be a leader, not by telling people what to do, but leading by example. So what we're saying to people is, when it comes to water, it just isn't one selection of water. Anything liquid is water. It's what mankind did to it that we embrace by continuing to need it. Until we stop saying we want it and we say no to it and we go back to the purest of waters, we believe that nature itself will take its course back in life. I don't believe in my lifetime or anybody's lifetime in the far future that Mother Earth can be destroyed because she's resilient. But she needs to shake off, just like if somebody had a hangover, they need to shake it off. We're giving Mother Earth this huge hangover that she needs to shake off. So there's other parts of the world that believe there's a reason why these tsunamis happen, and it's water. Water will go in and it'll cleanse. Some people say it destroys. It never destroys. It can't destroy something that it was never intended to, because mankind has inflicted that abuse on her, and she's reminding them how powerful she is. So there's many stories of water that goes along the line here. But the message here is, each morning you wake up and you wash your face with water. You brush your teeth with water. You make your pot of coffee with water. You wash dishes with water. Everything is done with water. Start thinking by just yourself of doing things moderately. Learn to turn that water off. Learn to fill your dishes. Do it all at once. Just don't do a few. Don't do a few clothing and this stuff. You know, learn to think for your next generations. Don't give the outside world a reason to build more things to clean water with. The other thing too is with water, we believe that greed is going to be a destruction of water, such as a lot of the fracking and you hear people talking about. Because that's, again, you know, you just can't do that, because the world depends on this existence. And if we allow somebody to taint it, that's going to happen. It's going to trickle down, and it's going to happen to us, our grandchildren, or somebody else if we don't tell them to stop. Because we existed for tens of thousands of years without this abundance, and we lived more healthier. Within the last 100 years, this greed has taken on. And what it's done is it made a destruction of people. If you have to really think, 100 years, wow. But it's our voice that we have to stand up and we have to say, it's no more. We don't want this no more. There's thousands of us that say no, and there might be 5 or 10 that says yes. We have to stand our ground, such as the people in Canada, you know, and they heard that young lady earlier, you know, Scotland, all these countries are saying no to a lot of this damaging stuff that they're doing to Mother Earth. So to me, water is life. It's 24/7. There's not a second that goes by that doesn't exist in you. So if you're going to abuse it, you have to reap what you just approved of. If you take care of it, you can see your children happy, because you're going to entrust that you're not going to be giving them something tainted. Make sense? And so then, to me, water really is life. Water is life. We always say water, not oil, but water is life.
And water is very important to me because I teach water exercise classes. So without water, I wouldn't have a job. But I also call water the miracle drug, because I teach people in my classes who may have had injuries or who are recovering from surgery on a joint, or who can't do a lot of exercise but for in water, because it's easier to exercise in water as far as it holding you up in the water, and they can do things in water that they can't do on land. So that's why I call it the miracle drug, and I think it's a very special medium for people to stay active and part of life, and to have fun. It's a fun exercise, and you can do it anywhere where there's water. I've taught in rivers and streams and lakes, and of course pools, indoors and outdoors. So it's just a fun thing, but it just, as I said, it just makes you feel good.
You know, I talked about being a teacher, and that now being formally in my past, and it brings up the metaphor of, you know, that's water over the dam, which allows me to go on and as the river continues to flow, which is the metaphor for life, I got to be on the committee that planned this wonderful water festival. But thinking back about days of teaching, I remember one of the concepts I brought up to students that I think they may have found the most profound was when I talked about what is valuable in life and what can we not live without, and what do we value. And it would come around to money and what backs money, gold, and can we eat gold? Can we wash with gold? Can how does gold play a place in our life? And think about what does play a place on a daily basis that we couldn't live without. And then we came up with water. Water for drinking, water for growing our plants, water for, washing our clothes, washing our bodies, healing our sick. Why do we value gold more than water? And many times that would be a assignment where people had to do some very introspective thinking. How did we get in this culture? How did we get in this world? How did we get in this species that all values something like gold more than water? Then, as I think about my own philosophy of life and meaning of life, and doing the exploration for that, I came across books, and a book in particular, and it was called Chop Wood, Carry Water. And in reading that, it had a real Buddhist basis. And then I realized how absolutely important water was, not just because it nourishes our body and grows our food and provides energy to our factories and washes our clothes and is used in the most basic of healing and cleaning processes with illness and disease, but it's something that we, being human, need to do. No matter how rich we are, no matter where we are in our life cycle, be it the beginning, be it the end, be it through our adult developmental stages where we're pursuing interests and careers and relationships and families and learning, we need to carry water. That water is the life stream of our essence as an individual and our essence as a species. So it's become a great mantra. In days when things aren't sunshiny and at the top of the world, you still have to chop wood and carry water. And on days when it is celebratory and grand, we need to chop wood, carry water.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Mary, 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 what's the but's a dream?
Very nice. That's a good water song, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know any others?
Oh.
What?
Slippery fish, sliding through
Wait, I can't
water.
see your hands yet. I gotta see it. Okay, let's see it again. Wait a minute. Okay.
Slippery fish, sliding through the water. Slippery fish, gulp, gulp. Oh no, it's been eaten by a octopus, wiggling through the water. Octopus, gulp, gulp, gulp. Oh no, it's been eaten by great white shark working through the water. great white shark, great white shark. Go, go, go. Oh no, it's been eaten by humongous whale, humongous whale spouting through the water. Humongous whale, gulp, gulp, gulp.
Nice.
Pardon me.
Very good. Thank you. You did great.
Good job, Riley.
Thank you.
Okay, good.